Hey, welcome back. Today, Joris and I are going to answer a question around landing zones on AWS. So, Joris, why should you set up how to set up your landing zone on AWS? What do you think? What's your take on it?
Well, setting up a landing zone involves a lot of automation because why would you do stuff manually, right? You want to have things happen for you while not doing them manually. This saves you time and makes it easy to repeat because you just trigger something off and it will happen automatically. So it will save you time.
Co- Cool, and also it's going to be reproducible. So I think
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So really looking forward to see what you have for us today. Before we jump into that, Joris, who are you? How did you and I meet?
Yeah, so I've been a consultant at Expedia for 3 years now, but before that I was a software engineer at heart. Have been using AWS since 2009, so I have quite some experience on AWS. I'm also a authorized instructor for AWS, and I'm an AWS community builder, and that's where we actually met. We met in the Slack channels over there, and we connected on LinkedIn, and I believe we had a discussion somewhere on LinkedIn on CI/CD stuff, and that led to this recording. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for getting on and for taking time to me to talk about landing zones. And we also have something in common that we don't usually talk about, right? Um, you know this
Ah,
guy?
Sam. Yeah, I have one too.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so you're a Sam lover then
Yeah,
as well? No.
yeah. Cloud Formation Sam.
Yeah,
That's my
okay.
infrastructure as code. Maybe a small spoiler for the rest of the of the show, but we will see.
Yeah, I was just recently recording with Alan Helton, who is also on the Sam front, right? That's a funny conversation as well. Okay, so my channel is usually CI/CD. It's not really landing zone and setting up your AWS account. So why is this interesting for the audience of this channel? What do you think?
Well, CI/CD is all about delivering value fast, right? So having a landing zone and having a account to develop in, you also want to have that fast. So why would the provisioning of a account be different than provisioning a product in an account? So I would say that makes them really related. So onboarding a new AWS account for a specific goal and even offboarding those accounts as well. When you automate that, then it becomes easy and you can just use it and you can focus your time on things that matter. And that is the business logic or the reasoning why you want to experiment with certain things.
Yeah, and as I told you before, I always use my recordings to learn something myself. So maybe help me understand what do we understand as being a landing zone, and what did I do wrong when I set up my own AWS account?
Well, if you ask the question, what is a landing zone to a different person, you will probably get a different answer. Um, but in my eyes, a landing zone is a place where you can land your workloads or your experiments. Um, and I typically do them in clean accounts because that makes them reproducible as well when you deploy them actually in a production ready environment. Um, and you can do it very simple, but and you can do it very complex. For example, you could do all fancy network setups and tie them together and those kind of things. But in the end, it needs to work for you. But the most important part of a landing zone is that it is automated, and I think that is what you did not do to begin with. Right? I just have one single command, like give me an account, and then I go grab a coffee, and when I come back, I have an account. And
Okay, that's what I want because at the moment it is Johannes going to the console, clicking add a new account to an organization that I created manually. Then I need to enter an email address, blah 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 blah. It always takes me 5 minutes. So now, how do I get to that? So what technologies are you using in the way that you have set up your own landing
yeah,
zone?
so there are different ways how you could do this, right? AWS exists from building blocks, and these building blocks you can actually utilize them to build your stuff. So in my landing zone that I created, I used customizations for AWS Control Tower. Control Tower is essentially already part of your landing zone as well, right? But it has an extension where you can just use a API call to trigger a step function, which would do actually all the automation to create the account. But not only that, you give it a name, right? Let's say we have a CI/CD demo workload. That is then your name, and typically what I do, I will prefix it with something which is known, Acme dash workload name dash development. And that would be then the name that you fill in the form manually. But that's also the alias that I will use in an email address. So my first name plus alias of the account at email address. So the email is arranged as well. Um, and so all these things that you manually fill in are being determined based on business logic instead of having to think about them over and over again, which also removes human error, and which also have other benefits as well. Because if you have a specific naming scheme in your accounts, you can do fancy stuff based on that naming scheme later on. Um, so yeah.
This sounds cool. Yeah, sounds really easy actually. I think is so. How hard is it to get this for my accounts? Do you think it's like hours of work, or
Yeah,
can we do that in the next 20 minutes?
I wouldn't say 20 minutes. I can walk over it in 20.
Yeah.
But
Then let's try that, and that gets me started at least.
so actually, this is the customizations for AWS Control Tower repository. You can probably put the link somewhere in the descriptions. But what it has this manifest file. And what you can actually do here is define certain templates as well.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, a organization has, for instance, service control policies, which are defined here. Is it big enough, or should I make it a little bit bigger? Maybe.
I think it should be good enough.
So you actually define a block of YAML which points to a JSON file in this case, and this is SCP,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually point it to a specific organization unit. So in this specific example, I actually have this sandbox.json, and I point this to an organization unit called sandboxes. So if I create a
Mm-hmm.
sandbox account, I will put it into this organization unit, and then the SCP that is defined here is actually applied to that. So
Mm-hmm.
now this is obviously my very small landing zone thing, but you can disguise the limit here with SCPs. But in my specific example, I just wanted to block the function URL functionality of Lambda in sandbox environments. So this is a very simple example what you could do, obviously. But the cool thing is that you
Mm-hmm.
can actually now manage your security control policies through infrastructure as code. That is what you're getting with this. So you don't have to go to your organization's environment and edit this manually. It is actually being done through CI/CD using pipelines.
Okay, so just stupid question. Manifest YAML is part of a makefile, or how are you executing this?
So actually, this is executed in a pipeline, which I will log into because yes, that makes more sense to show the actual pipeline since we're in a CI/CD podcasts. So I will open that up. Pipeline, here it is. So it comes with a code pipe, AWS code pipeline, and the repository is nothing more than a code commit repository. So you just do git
Okay.
add, git commit, git push, and then this one
Mm-hmm.
will be executed. And this has a source tab.
Cool. That's interesting. That's interesting. So at the end, code pipeline is used here to execute all of these things.
Yes.
And does this mean that I can execute code pipeline with a parameter, or is this how do you?
Now, the way how this works is that actually there is some scripting involved with this, right? And this is a product, the customizations for Control Tower. This specific landing zone implementation is
Okay.
maintained by AWS. Now you also have the accelerated landing zone, which AWS is moving towards. But while I was building
Mhm.
this, that was not a thing yet. So that's why I might do a migration someday. Um, but what this does actually in this code build step that you see actually here, right? It will actually read the manifest at YAML and determine what needs to happen. For example, I showed you the service control policy, which is executed here. And what this does, it actually will create a or execute a step function, which I can also show, and that will actually will take care of the execution of making sure that the JSON file is actually attached to the OU.
Okay. So if we want to put this in a little bit more fancy words, this is kind of a GitOps model for using something that you commit to your Git in that manifest.yaml, which will then be automatically applied by the pipeline that we see over here, which will then automatically set up accounts for you and or kind of destroy accounts for you as well. The moment that you remove them from the manifest YAML, or will it just set up new accounts?
No, the account creation process is a different setup here. This is just the attachment of the security control policies. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
so what? Let me show you just one execution. It is a again, it's a maintained product by AWS. It has a lot of options. I don't know what's happening all here, right? I don't care as well because it's
Okay.
managed and maintained by somebody else. But this will make sure that the service control policies actually get attached to the OUs. And you have the
Okay.
same scenario for deploying actual things in AWS accounts. So, for example, what I typically do is, like we mentioned, right? You have an AWS account and you want to deploy something in that account. Then you need a CloudFormation role to actually create a stack and execute the stack
Mhm.
as well. So that is something that I will distribute using a landing zone. Onboard the account, make
Okay.
sure that all the roles are there, all the resources that we need. For example, a good example always is each AWS account in each region, I create an S3 bucket for do some access logging, for example. Um, so those
Okay.
types of activities are actually automated through the landing zone.
Okay.
So yeah, this is then the service control policy step, and here you have a CloudFormation resource. What that does is actually, again, trigger a step function, which is in essence a stack set orchestration tool, right?
Mhm.
And in the YAML file that I showed earlier, if you scroll a bit down, you would see definitions of the build account bootstrap, audit account bootstrap, and those kind of things. But it's just pointing to a CloudFormation template and then
Mhm.
defining where it needs to be deployed. In this case, it's only deployed in a build account. And here you have two regions that I'm utilizing for this. So that is what the stack set is doing,
Okay.
making sure that this template is being deployed to those regions.
Okay, got it. And account creation happens where?
Uh, Good question. You're putting me on the spot. I did not prepare for that.
That's fine. I'm just trying to learn myself, as I said, and I never know what kind of questions I
Yeah,
ask.
no, that's okay.
Um, okay, so cool. So at the end of this pipeline now, can we look at how an account will look like that you set up with that? Um,
So let me dive in. I just did my if we go to DynamoDB, so you ask for the account creation, right? So
yes,
there is actually a DynamoDB table. I needed to look it up in my README, and which I don't want to show in the in the recording because
fine.
it's not clean for broadcasting, I would say. Um,
That's normal.
Yeah, it's my private organization, right? I use it for testing and those kind of things. So here you actually would see a example. The account vending I actually added later on. That's why you only see four options here. But let's
Mhm.
see if I can generate an account while we're doing this. That would be awesome, I would say. So I have a snippet here that I could use. So normally this is being triggered by an API call and that is being fed into the DynamoDB stuff. But let's do CI/CD.
So then at the end, there's a DynamoDB stream that will kick off a step function that creates the corresponding account.
Yes,
That sounds fun.
it is CI/CD. So I do believe it needs to be development, otherwise. And, right. So basically, this is it. This is it. I will just create it. Haha, nice.
That's good.
Yeah,
Well
well
protected.
protected. So let me cheat a bit. This will do the trick. So now I'm actually an administrator. That should be able to do this.
I hope so.
It does.
Yay.
Awesome. Yeah, here it
Okay, and
is.
now it should trigger a step function, is what you
Yeah,
said.
so actually you see that this one is new. So
Hmm.
this should pick up a stream and that would create an account, etc., etc. Um,
And then after a few minutes, it should be
yeah.
updating
So
this
we
one
can
to
we can we can
succeed.
go back to this later to see what actually happened, and then we can actually log into it as well. Um, would be
Cool.
cool though if no, the account ID is not here yet. So
Yeah, let's give it a
we
few
will give
minutes.
it.
What else did we want to look at and share? Show.
Yeah. So actually, while we were discussing on LinkedIn as well, right? How would you use then a landing zone to do experimentation? So I would say let's dive into a different account while we are waiting on this to be populated, and that is actually the build account, which is also quite cool, I would say. So let's switch to this one. I might minimize this one. Open this one up. So this actually has, in the landing zone, I'm also managing source catalog products, which are actually available here in this build account. Um,
Hmm.
and this actually speeds up my experimentation phase as well. So I could say, for example, I want a generic product of project, I would say, and then I copied some.
And this service catalog details and products that you have over there are distributed as part of the landing zone using the stack sets that we talked about
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
right?
So I've defined a couple of CI/CD pipelines which I regularly use. So I have a generic product. I have something from S3 and CloudFront, like a website, right? The
Mhm.
typical cases, I would say. So, and those are actually being distributed as part of the landing zone. These are available, well, in this case, only available in this build account, but you also have patterns where
Okay.
you would have a build account per workload, maybe. And then I would expose that on all the build accounts.
Okay, makes sense.
So here you can just fill in some details that are important for your administration, right? It always needs a name.
Hmm.
But the cool thing is here. So after you created an AWS account, you can use the account ID that is here. Say this is my development account, and then you can also supply a development link, which is yeah, used somewhere in the pipeline, and a production account. I skipped the testing and accepting here, Again, personal usage here. I don't need a full DTAP, but you can just launch the product. And again, how this works on the background, it will create a CloudFormation stack in this account and create all the resources for you. Um, so if we go to CloudFormation, you can actually see that while we're waiting on the deployment. Might be nice to have something to look at, something to talk over. So here you could see that actually the resources are created. You see things like pipelines, repositories, and those kind of things. Um, and the cool thing here is if I now go to code pipeline.
Pretty interesting, to be honest. Joris, this is the first. You're the first one showing me how to use service catalog as well in your private organization, because I've not seen anyone using that in their private stuff. Usually, everyone has like CDK, CloudFormation, or Terraform deploying out the stuff, right? And you're using service catalog to distribute that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and the reason why I do this is again, from a CI/CD perspective, we're looking for fast value. If you would do a CDK in it, and yeah, of course you get a pipeline and stuff, but that's all stuff that you have to manage and maintain in your repository. It's all
Mm-hmm.
extra. And especially with
Mm-hmm.
CDK, I would say it also comes with a maintenance burden of updating the dependencies and those kind of things. So it adds work, I would say. And using Service
Mm-hmm.
Catalog,
That's
you can
true.
actually focus on improving your templates and making them more generic, and then applying them to all your projects if they fit in.
But it obviously, yeah, but it obviously requires that the deployment steps are the same for all of the services in this case,
Yeah,
right?
they need to be
Which is,
somewhat generic,
yeah,
indeed.
yeah, which is sometimes possible and sometimes isn't. Yeah, I think it yeah. I don't know. Did we talk about Progen pipelines? I think I told you about it
Yeah.
at least, right? It's an open source project that I'm working on with Torsten on making exact the same thing. Well, default pipelines, standard pipelines available as well, right? Which follows a similar strategy, but then using Progen under
Oh,
the hood.
nice.
I will send that to you
Send
later.
the link. I will check it out definitely. So the cool thing here is actually is let me share this one. Um, so actually, these notifications that you see here in Slack are actually coming from pipeline, right? It's 10:32. It's now 10:33. So it's actually the notifications of the pipelines are also communicated back to Slack. So when the pipeline is
Cool.
finished, I would actually there it is. So there should there it is. Right, it's
Yay!
successfully deployed. Now, this is also something, right? I deployed it. It was a couple of seconds. Obviously, the repository was already there. But let's do something cool now. Let's go to a terminal and let's do the command here as well. Don't want to make typos during a demo, right?
Well, you need to make typos during a demo, otherwise people will think that we pre-recorded this
That's true.
and that we edited and stuff like that. And yeah, as you know, I don't try to edit that much.
So actually, remember the name was actually CI/CD on AWS was the pipeline, and by using code commit region and a profile which I set up earlier, I can now actually
Mm-hmm.
clone
But the code commit repository relies is within the tooling account that we just
yeah
looked at.
the
Okay.
build
Yeah.
account. Yeah. So this is actually
Yeah. It's yeah. Makes sense.
So then I can actually spin up a new Visual Studio Code, and here you see all. Of course, I trust the author. I am the author. So here you would see a normal setup, which a pre-populated Git repository, and this will get me on my feet really quick because it
Okay.
just has a CloudFormation template, and now you can do everything that you want, right? So let me remove the dummy topic, and let's do something like this, right? And that would replace the dummy resource with a SNS topic. Why an SNS topic?
Yep.
It's quick, doesn't require any parameters.
Yeah, but this means at the end that you have SAM under the hood that is now used as infrastructure as code, and this was pre-set up during the setup of the Git commit of the code repository,
Yeah.
right?
So with code commit, you can actually point to a zip
Yeah.
file on S3, which contains this data as part of the service
Okay.
catalog deployment. Indeed. At SNS topic, it's push, and that will then start deploying again. Now let's have a look at the build spec here. So I actually included the build spec in the repository so that you have some control as a developer on what's actually happening here. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's using SAM. So we install the CLI, we install SAM, we do a SAM build, and then we do a SAM package. And the artifact
Mm-hmm.
bucket is actually being deployed as part of the landing zone as well. So these are all pre-configured and available for us. I also have two
Okay.
files, a parameter development and a parameter production, so that you can have control over the input parameters of the pipeline. And that's basically what it is for the repository. Again, you can see here that this one is now running, and if I go to Slack, it should have some new notifications indeed. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say let's
Cool.
dive into.
So the pipeline directly works out of the box with that setup, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so what you do actually is you say, "Hey, give me a product from the catalog." Then you wait until it's provisioned. You do a git clone, and you can start developing right away. And everything that you commit is being deployed to development. And because I don't configured a production account yet, it just stops there.
Mm-hmm.
When I add the
Okay.
production ID later on, then an additional step will just be added with a condition of with an approval flow. Right, that you need to approve the step. Um, Now, what would be cool, I guess, is also to have a look at what it's actually deploying. So let's go to this screen. This is a different account. This is actually the account that matches the account ID that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So if I would go to CloudFormation, here you would see the CI/CD on AWS created on
Mm-hmm.
in this
Cool.
recent time. So let's see what's in here. It has a dummy resource.
Yay.
Obviously, the code
So
build is still running. So within a few seconds, I would say this would be updated with the SNS topic as well.
okay, cool. So now I know that this was not what we discussed earlier, but can we have a look on how do I update a service catalog thing now? Like we kicked off this code pipeline deployment with a specific version of the service catalog item, right? And now you would be having a new version of the pipeline. Will you be able to automatically roll that out to everyone that has been using this, or what's the strategy there?
Have a look if I can easily pull that up. Let's see this one. Ah. So I have a service catalog folder here. It has a portfolio. So let's this one off. Yeah, you define a bucket where you actually store your zip files. Right, and there's some the actual logging bucket that you deploy with the landing zone is there configured as well. It has a policy. Well, here you define the portfolio, and here I have two shares in this case with my audit account and with my build account. And then in products, I actually define the product of the service catalog. So if I would add a new one, I would just do this. Uh,
And then you will point that to a different template.
yeah,
Got it?
yeah. Oh no, I use parameters actually.
Yeah, of course. But it makes sense. Okay. And now, once this is created, there would be a UI to roll this out to all accounts, I would assume, right?
Yeah, so this is actually deployed to a service catalog AWS account. So I have a dedicated account for all my service catalog
Okay.
products, and I have a different folder where I actually manage these. I don't do that often. The sharing of the screen. So I'm struggling a bit with finding my.
No, you're doing great.
So let's dive into service catalog products because it is in a different repository. So let me share you that. Let's say this is it. Right. So these actually are the projects, right? So,
Hmm.
we use the generic
Got it.
one, and here's just the template what it does. Right.
Okay.
These
Got
were
it.
the project name, description, development account, and the production account ID. And this is actually the SSM parameter that does the Slack integration that you just saw. It's just an SNS topic, which is integrating chatbot. Um, and
Cool. Yeah,
yeah,
great.
and it holds all the logic for the pipeline, right? So the code commit repository here. I still need to make a pipeline for this, so this is not fancy. Sorry about that, but I use just a simple make file where I can just do make release, and then it will upload all the products that I have, which is in essence just creating a new version that you see here, zipping it all up, sending it to S3, and then I just need to update the landing zone, make it aware of the new version, and then it becomes available in the build account. And then you can update your products, your running products.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. So now we've seen the product in the service catalog. We have seen the code pipeline being the CI/CD pipeline being automatically deployed to a target account. We have not seen the account creation process finish. Maybe we can go back to that and see if that actually worked.
Yeah, let's have a look. Where's my master? Yes. Let's go back to the MPA account.
And we can see that the code pipeline succeeded in the meantime.
Yeah, this one succeeded. Oh, yeah, I already switched context.
That's normal if you want to showcase on multiple accounts. That always
Yeah,
happens.
I wish there was some improvement coming. I have some bad news.
It
It
didn't
didn't
work.
work. It's still on a new state, so I'm not sure why this failed.
That that means you did not pray enough to the demo god this morning, Joris. So maybe we need to practice that. No, and actually, it always happens, and there will be reasons for it. I think it's not worth triaging that. But you mentioned that there would be an API to do the same thing instead of talking to DynamoDB directly.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's nothing more than a command line thing that I use with a make
okay,
file, which yeah, you can call it an API, but it's actually it should inject the payload that I manually injected. It should do the
okay, got it,
but
got it. Okay,
again, this is typically one of these things that you don't do that often in your own landing zone organization. Um, so I don't know why it broke. Probably I did something wrong somewhere. I can I
okay. And offboard, yeah, offboarding of an account would work similarly. Then I would just delete this item here, or
actually, that is just how you would normally offboard a account. Potentially, you could execute a nuke in the account if you want, just to clean up, and then move it to a suspended OU in your organization.
Okay.
that would tie off all the access to the APIs, and then you can just go in as root and just close the account. Um, yeah, closing an account is. I'm not sure if there is an API for that. I haven't looked into it. I only closed one
I
account
think
personally.
there has been an announcement last year around an API being available to do that now and to automate that, because that has been a request for a very long
Yeah.
time. Okay,
But
cool.
the same thing applies, right? You could still in this case where normally it would look to this new status and it should trigger the creation. You could also do a terminate status, trigger a lambda function, and then do the API to terminate the account. So you can still automate that then
Cool.
if the API is there. Especially the triggering of the nuke or the movement to the suspended OU. That is definitely something that you could automate, which probably makes more sense for bigger organizations than just my personal landing zone. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, cool. So then let's go into a little bit of a wrap up and talk about what we started at the beginning. So if you want to be if we want to advocate for setting up your landing zone in an automated fashion, what would you say is the best starting point for listeners that want to get some bias for action after doing this, after listening to this video now?
I would say look at the things that you spend the most time in, and that is reproducible. So if you spend like 5 minutes every single day to do something which you could automate, start with that. Um, Start small. Start with the annoying stuff, things that go wrong often. Um, that is a great starting point, I would say. Because looking at the landing zone, as we discussed in the beginning, if you ask anyone else, they would give a different answer what a landing zone should be or should contain. But that really depends on what kind of business you are in. Um, for example, I don't have any VPCs in my in my organization because I'm paying for the bill. I don't want transit gateways and net gateways and peering and all those kind of things because I have to pay for that. I'm just using Lambda functions and those kind of things. So I'm not really utilizing that. And I don't have a CISO that tells me that it needs to run in a VPC, so I'm not doing that, right? Um, but again, some companies might need that. So start small, I would say. Um,
Cool, and I think we can also link the blog post that you had around setting up your own landing zone. That was a trigger of me reaching
yeah.
out to you because essentially I have my own manually set up landing zone, and I'm looking for a possibility to automate that as well for my own AWS account.
Yeah, and the stuff that actually that I used, for example, the service catalog deployment of the pipeline that does all the cross-account deployments in the member accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a blog on that as well. Actually, if you look at the blogs that I've written, they're all about this. These are all my experiences of things that I ran into. And if you read the order of publishing, you can actually see which which I did first, and then I ran into the next thing. So you can use that as a chronicle line.
Cool. Yeah, let's make sure that we link all of those. So now I'm gonna leave you with an idea. And you know that I've been doing a lot of Code Catalyst stuff and a lot of custom blueprint stuff in Code Catalyst as well. It would be amazing to set up something like that using custom blueprints, because that makes you get rid of the central tooling account that you have over here, right? Which is one of the most, which is one of the things that AWS has been advocating for, right? You don't want that tooling account. You want to share stuff within your source code repositories at the end, right? And custom blueprints gives you that possibility. So if you have some free time and want to redo some of that stuff, right? Implementing that kind of landing zone best practice implementation and making that available to users would be amazing, right? And I can help you with that as well
Yeah. So
if you
there
want
are
to.
always weekends that I'm sometimes are bored. So you never know. No, I really like enjoying playing around. So probably I will at least have a look at it.
Yeah, it sounds good. And I will also make sure that the service team gets this idea, right? Because essentially, if they already maintain this stuff in CloudFormation and SAM, right, they can also make that
Yeah,
available through a blueprint in Code Catalyst, which would then help people like me to get
yeah,
started faster. And I think is so. Let's maybe last one last technical question. Um, is this landing zone accelerator that you're using part of the AWS solutions library or this kind of thing? So there is
yeah. I'm not using the accelerated one. I'm using
okay,
customizations for Control Tower, which I can put on the
okay,
screen.
yeah, yeah. Let's link that as well then for me.
So this is this one. Um, but this is actually from AWS. So this is the predecessor of Landing Zone Accelerator. But AWS is now pushing more for Accelerator. Um, but I haven't played around with it, so I don't have
Not a
an
problem.
opinion on
Okay,
that.
cool. Maybe let's link that as well. I think if there is that might be very interesting for the future because if there is already something available here, um, I I hope that it would be possible to just import that somehow into Code Catalyst one day, right? That would be really fun.
Yeah,
Cool.
need to
Then,
look at the details, but sure we'll manage to figure that out.
Joris, I'm really thankful for you getting on. I'm also thankful that we did not say Gen AI once until right now, because that has been the conversation in a lot of technical
Yeah,
topics in the past few months. So I think it is important to also understand the basics without just looking into what's kind of new and
yeah.
cool. Where where can people find you and more about you of your work besides on the blog post? Where can they reach out to you if they have follow up questions?
I'm on the AWS Developer Slack. Just search for my name. I'm on Twitter. Just search for my name. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Uh, I don't.
So you are
Yeah,
everywhere.
I also have my blogs are on Medium, Dev.to. Starting posting them to community.aws. I have my own website and all cross posting and setting them up with canonicals set up correctly, which is important. So yeah, or Google on some interesting landings on stuff. I'm sure my blog post will pop up as well.
Cool. Thank you so much for being on and for taking the time of your day to record with me.
Thanks.
And
Pleasure.
yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.